Visitor Center. My name is Han Barrett-Lou, like Joe said. I'm here at the Visitor Center at Lafayette Reservoir, and I'm excited to be with everyone here tonight. I imagine that a lot of the people in the audience are people that I know from the reservoir and are probably friends. So it's great to be here with you. I'm excited to tell you what I know and love about this place. I'll give you, as a little more background, some information about myself. I grew up in Berkeley, that's drinking East Bay mud water. I currently live in Emeryville, drinking East Bay mud water. So I'm not only a park ranger, an East Bay mud park ranger, I'm also a customer. I started telling people around age 12, after years of going up to Tilden, that I wanted to be a park ranger. And so in some ways, you're also looking at a dream come true. I worked previously, well, my first jobs were at Safeway, Jamba Juice, and Starbucks. Those were all in the East Bay Mud service area, and their products were all the better for it. I went to school in Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. That was the only time I didn't live in the East Bay Mud service area, and that wasn't great. During my summers in school, I worked as a backcountry trail crew member for the National Park Service in Yosemite. I had the opportunity to build the trail up Half Dome, for instance, and the trail up Clouds Rest. During the school year, I worked as a grounds crew member for Cal Poly, for the state. And I eventually, 5.5 years later, graduated with a degree in earth science. I felt really lucky to get picked up for my first park ranger job with the East Bay Regional Park District. And I worked with them for 5 years in a number of different parks, including Lake Chabot, Shadow Cliffs, Las Trampas, Contra Loma, before applying for and being picked up here at East Bay Mud, which was 12 years ago. And so again, I think I probably know a lot of y'all here. That's because I've been working specifically at the Lafayette Reservoir my entire time with East Bay Mud. I was working for 10 years as a park ranger. So there's a good chance you saw a lot more of me out there back then. About a couple of years ago, I became the park supervisor here. Again, I'm excited to tell you all everything I know and love about this place. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a biologist. Neither am I a mathematician, a politician, or a forester. I'm all of those things. I'm a park ranger. So one of the things, hey Joe, if you wouldn't mind, let's get that poll ready. I'm interested to know who's out there and who of the audience might use the reservoir. So do that first poll if you would.
Definitely. And also I want to let you know that Gail, who's online right now, is also a Cal Poly alumni too. So she just
all right.
Yeah.
Right on. Go Mustangs. While this poll is going on, I might go get some hot East Bay mud water. I just put on the kettle. Excuse me.
Keep it going. Everybody's answering right now. We're going to let this go for about a minute here while Han is away. Got some good answers coming in. Nobody goes twice a day.
Nobody
So
in
far.
our audience, at least. We've got a number of people that come at least twice a day, believe it or not, which I think is really cool. What are you seeing out there? What are the numbers looking like, Joe?
So right now, 53% says I go a few times a year. And then second is I've never been, but I'm planning on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then third,
awesome.
We've got 18% I go once a week. And then 5% I go every day. We've got some hardcore folks on the call tonight.
We have. Right on. Well, that sounds really good. I'm glad to see the folks and be with the folks that I already know from the reservoir. And also welcome to the people who haven't been to the reservoir before. We really look forward to seeing y'all out here soon. Hey, that's a cool poll. I can see it now.
Nice.
All right. Well, with that, shall we dive in?
Let's dive in. There you go. Another
right.
Water pun.
Cannonball, splash in. All right.
Don't actually touch the water though, folks. Han will get into that.
The first thing we'll do is go to a very brief history of Lafayette itself. The Lafayette Reservoir is in Lafayette, and so we'll cover the town and city's history really quickly here. We'll start off with its indigenous history. Lafayette is in an area once inhabited by the Saklan tribe of the Bay Miwok. I think there's a lot to say about this history. I personally don't know it too well and don't feel like an authority on the subject, but we should, and I will acknowledge that I'm here at Lafayette Reservoir right now, and I acknowledge that this is the unceded and ancestral land of the Bay Miwok, and it's my understanding that also the Ohlone people lived in this area. Oh, I want to mention, across the street from the Lafayette Reservoir is the Lafayette Community Garden. And I recently heard that members of the community garden are developing a Miwok village over there, including some kind of traditional Thule huts, like homes, that have used, at least in part, Thule collected from the reservoir to build.
Oh, great.
So if people are interested, they should check that out. And they have a website, the Lafayette Community Garden does. All right. This is about early Spanish settlement and the Mexican land grant, the Rancho Acalanes. So I'll just kind of read this one off. But following early Spanish settlement and 12 years after Mexico won its independence from Spain, Governor Jose Figueroa granted Rancho Acalanes an approximation of the name Saclan to Candelario Valencia on August 1st, 1834. And if you look over at this map, which is from the Lafayette Historical Society, you can see the boundary of the Rancho Acalanes here. Rancho Acalanes was kind of comprised most of what is now Lafayette. And you can see our reservoir here kind of cut in half by the boundary of that rancho. All right, moving on from there, we get into American settlement. Elam Brown and Margaret Allen arrived to the area by wagon train in 1846. Joe found out that they arrived here just days before the Donner Party went through what's now Donner Pass. I don't know what it would have been called then. So they were just ahead of that. They arrived in the area a year later, or within a year. They married and purchased the Rancho Acalanes as its third owners in 1847. I read a really kind of interesting historical fact about this. Apparently, a lot of the money that Elam Brown bought the Rancho Acalanes with was money, $800, that Margaret Allen had stored in a clock that she brought along with her. They had kind of had lives before they moved west, and that $800 was hers. Elam Brown used it once they were married to buy the Rancho Acalanes, and that's how they became owners of the property. All right. The town of Lafayette was established. Elam Brown is considered its founder, and it was established in 1857. So that's 10 years after they were married, 10 years after they bought the Rancho Acalanes. And then Lafayette was incorporated as a city in 1968. Here's a great picture from the Historical Society. This is, as you can see here, Mount Diablo Boulevard looking west, the corner of Mount Diablo Boulevard and Moraga Road in 1937. So if I'm getting it right, the Roundup, I've never set foot in the place, but the Roundup bar is right around here someplace now. And then we're looking west. The Lafayette Reservoir would be down the road here. All right, and that's our very brief history of Lafayette.
And just make sure that folks know you can continue to put questions in the question and answer box, and we'll answer them along the way. If you have any questions, feel free to write them up.
That's right. All right, but we're here mostly to talk about the Lafayette Reservoir. So I'm excited to share with y'all a history of Lafayette Reservoir. We'll get right into it. We have a whole bunch of really cool historical photos. In fact, they're here in the visitor center in a binder. So anytime, if anyone wants to come look at them, visit us in the visitor center. We do more things here than just collect parking fees. And we've got some cool materials to look at. These historical photos are included. This is a great photo. This is the site of the Lafayette Reservoir before the reservoir was constructed. For reference, I'm going to switch to the next slide, and you'll see the reservoir under construction and kind of see how it fits into the picture there, right? So same pear orchard, same pear orchard. Here's the valley that the reservoir now occupies. Here's the stream that fills the reservoir up. Again, kind of back and forth comparison. Lafayette for a long time was largely a farm town. This pear orchard, which is you'll see it in a lot of the pictures coming up, was a part of a farm. There's a farmhouse right here. Again, kind of here, you can see the house, and this is Mount Diablo Boulevard, I think, going by these couple of billboards here. The pears, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe was going to ask me about this one.
Well,
The
are they
pears-
still around?
The pear
Ron?
trees, not all of them are still around, but we still got about 30 pear trees at the base of the dam. And for those of you who visited here, you might be familiar with it, but when you're driving out of the exit road, and you're driving right adjacent to the dam at its bottom, if on your right side and a couple on your left too, there are pear trees. They're Bartlett pear trees. They still produce fruit. They're much more than 100 years old. We don't really do anything to tend to them, and they make delicious fruit. And in fact, we've got a group coming over next week, I think, to pick this year's crop of pears to distribute to the hungry and the homeless. So that's one of the really cool kind of little historical, I think, things about this park. All right. So that's where we are, and we'll kind of move on here to show you how it all started. This is the beginnings of the Lafayette Dam. We're facing west. There are going to be a lot of pictures looking in different directions. I find them fascinating for a number of reasons, not only for the work that's being done kind of at the focus of these pictures, but for what you see in the background, what it looked like then, how different it is from now, and what you can still kind of recognize that was there when these pictures were taken. So here are kind of, I would guess, the foundations in so many ways of the dam. I'll give everyone a minute to, not a full minute, I'll give everybody a little bit to check that out, and we'll keep on going on. Are you getting any questions, Joe?
Not yet. Christina's answering them also on the back end.
Right.
Some of them, we did have Scott wanted to mention that Lafayette was named after the French Marquis de Lafayette, who helped America in the Revolutionary War. So there's more fun facts for this Lafayette history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to another photo here. Oh yeah, okay. This is one of my favorite photos for a couple of reasons. So we've got this one titled Marion the Power Shovel. And there you see it, the Marion shovel, type 37, doing some work, putting a big load of dirt into the back of that dump truck. I love this picture for a couple of reasons. First of all, I love a power shovel or a steam shovel. I wanted this to be a steam shovel. It's just as well that it's a power shovel, but by now the electrical power shovels were the way rather than the steam powered ones. I grew up on that book, Mike Mulligan's Steam Shovel. And so this just makes me feel great for that reason. And then we've got these two workers here. The dam and the reservoir was built by a lot of local crews. They might have been contracted crews. There were also East Bay Mud workers, but a lot of the people working on the dam were local. So this is a cool glimpse into that past. This is a pretty, I think I know what's going on here. I've had this pose before too. You think they might be talking about work, but what I think is happening is someone's taking a nation's order. This says, I'm getting a bacon cheeseburger. What do you like? I think this guy's probably saying, don't they still have breakfast? And he's saying, yeah, breakfast is served all day. And they're figuring that whole thing out while Marion just is over here working, right?
No doubt, no doubt.
All right, isn't that it? That's the classic pose. So there's Marion, and we'll move on to some more of the workers and the equipment used. This is a sheep's foot roller. That refers to this implement on the back here, which is so named for these studs that come out that are more or less in the shape of a sheep's foot, and it's used to compact earth, right? We like to talk a lot about the Lake Chabot Dam, which was built much earlier. Lake Chabot Dam is kind of famous for its history. There were a lot of migrant Chinese workers that worked on it, and they used teams of horses to compact the earth. So it was their hooves and their weight that really added a lot of extra compaction that just a normal roller might not have. This is a more modern version of that kind of same concept. Here are the sheep's feet and the sheep's foot rollers doing some compaction. This guy's wondering whether or not we brought ketchup back from Nations. He said, where's the ketchup at? A couple of more workers, a couple of more pieces of equipment. We've got a steamroller. After all, there was a steamroller and a bulldozer. Somebody back here, I think, is on that dump truck. So still building up the dam. I think that's a great photo.
It is.
All right. Here we go, westward bulldozing. So I don't know if this doesn't look like it's at the top of the dam. It might be on one of the kind of adjacent hillsides.
That's what I was gonna ask
But it
you.
gives a pretty cool view, again, looking west. And compared to that other photo that had some of the stuff cropped out, you can see some homes and things down here. At least that's what it looks like to me.
Mara wanted to let you know that you are hilarious.
Hey, thanks, Mark. I actually appreciate that. It's funny to do these Zoom meetings where you can't hear anybody and you're saying all your best jokes into a vacuum. Appreciate it, Mark.
You're killing it.
All right. All right. Here's everybody. Everyone we've met so far, I think, is in this picture, and they're working on the top of the dam, continuing to add earth, compact it, and add earth and build it up. This is a great photo. Again, for kind of more or less for its background view, I think. But here's the dam. Here are dump trucks. I think probably adding earth to the dam. There's our pear orchard, right? And really, I think our exit road, you know, it hugs this and then it comes this way. I think we probably, including the dam, we've probably cut the exit road through here. A lot of these trees actually became, you know, were removed, and that area became part of the dam. But what I think is really cool about this picture is you have this great view looking to the other ridge line across what is now the 24 corridor, but this is before Highway 24 was there. And we have homes, and we've got Temple Isaiah over here. Matter of fact, Temple Isaiah is exactly where those original photos I showed you of the valley before the reservoir were taken from. So it would have been somewhere up on probably this hill or that. But yeah, this was before 24 was there. This was before these hillsides were developed much at all. I think that's a pretty cool photo.
It is, and this was around 1928, right? When we were constructing the dam.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Oh, Han, we've got two questions about the construction of the dam. So one is, where did all the dirt come from?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer for that. I'd be really interested to know too.
The second one is, what is the footprint of what we're seeing? What's the number of acres? Is it a mile?
I'll get into some of those kind of facts and figures in a little bit, but that's a great question too. And yeah, we'll be touching on the size of the dam, the acreage of the property, and watershed, and the size of the reservoir in just a little bit. So good questions both. If anyone knows where the earth came from, please let us know. I would really be interested to know where the dirt came from. Sometimes we dig holes, not in the dam. I don't want to freak anyone out. We got to dig holes out here all the time. It's interesting when you find dirt that you kind of know isn't native to the area. You can find that pretty easily in a lot of places, and especially here where so much dirt has been brought in. And it will have interesting things in it. I mean, you'll find bits of concrete. You'll find, you know, rocks that you don't necessarily see elsewhere naturally. And so yeah, this kind of construction fill and this dam fill, it'd be interesting to know where it came from. All right. Here is our outlet and operating tower. One of kind of our famous features, of course, of the reservoir. And this to me looks like it's nearly finished and complete. As you can see, the dam is still being built up. We'll get into what the operating tower is used for. We'll get into its function in a little bit, but just check out this picture, how tall that is before the reservoir really filled up and kind of as the dam is still under construction. Oh, here we are. We're going to talk about the tower now. So this is a design drawing from 1927 of the outlet and operating tower. And so to this day, the operating tower serves a really important function. I mean, it's extremely important. Our outlet tower is kind of unique. It does two things. It takes water from the reservoir and will release it as spill into Lafayette Creek, which is down at the base, basically at the front entrance of our park. A lot of dams and reservoirs have kind of a concrete ramp. That's kind of the typical spillway. And when the water level gets too high and is overflowing, that's something we don't normally want to do. It spills down the ramp. Our spillway is one of the two conduits that we have at the bottom of the dam. So we will allow water into the tower, which is hollow. It'll get down to the bottom, go into one of the two conduits. One of them spills to Lafayette Creek. The other conduit takes water across the street to Lafayette filter plant, where it will be treated as drinking water. So the outlet tower is dual purpose in that way. This is a really cool drawing to me. I have it right behind me on my wall here in the office. But you can kind of make out, I'm sorry it's not any bigger. You can make them out, and if you've walked the reservoir, you might have wondered what those kind of great looking, when I say great, I mean G-R-A-T-E, not G-R-E-A-T, great looking boxes are on the side of the tower. Those are called gates. Yeah, they're gates. And they are basically doors that can be controlled from our operating tower here, and they can be opened. They spiral. You can see these squares here are the gates that would be behind the tower from our view, and they keep on coming around. Here's one lower down. They spiral all the way down to the bottom of the reservoir. That allows EBMUD to open up the gates and draw from different parts of the water column. Sometimes there are good reasons to draw water from different parts of the water column, especially if you're going to use it for drinking and stuff like that. Right now, one of these gates is always open as our spill, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. So, but that's the basic function of the tower. Does anyone have any questions about that one?
We have a question more about the construction of the dam. And it's from Lucinda, who asks, how can you construct a dam without having rocks and mud in the finished project? Is there concrete around it like a swimming pool? So I'm not sure if we want to.
Yeah, there are different types of dams. And like Pardee Dam, it's my understanding that Pardee Dam up in on the McCullummy River, that's the source of most of EBMUD's water, is like a concrete dam. You know, the big dam projects that we're all kind of familiar with, that we're so famous, like the Hoover Dam and things like that, are mostly made of concrete. Lafayette Dam is an earth-filled dam, and that's a very common type of dam. Probably one of the oldest types of dam around. But yeah, we don't have. I'll show you actually a picture that will include some concrete. As you all have probably seen, if you've been to the reservoir, there is a concrete apron that's on the lake side of the dam. I'm not quite sure. I would imagine that is there to kind of help with the possibility of erosion, since the water is lapping up on that side of the dam all of the time. But the other side of the dam, when you're exiting the park and you see that grassy slope, that is the dirt and the grass growing on top of it. That really is what the whole dam is constructed out of. In so many ways, that is the dam. Again, it's an earth-filled dam.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep on going. Here's another picture. Now we're looking at the dam from that earthy, grassy side, like I was kind of just talking about. And this is another cool picture to me, because I think what we're looking at here are a number of different buildings. I've called them construction offices, workshops, and living quarters. That's because these look like tents that somebody's probably sleeping in. I don't know. They remind me of like Curry Village in the Yosemite Valley or something. We've got this whole line of cars from the 1920s.
Model Ts.
We have any? You think they're Model Ts?
I think so. They have to be. 20s. Number one selling.
That's a good answer to me.
Yeah.
If we've got any car enthusiasts out there and they see something that we don't, let us know. But yeah, I'll roll with that. They're Model Ts. That's about at least 12 Model Ts right there. I've put this little thing here, all's quiet. To me, this looks kind of nice. It looks like things are going to plan, and all is quiet until, hold on. You do your best damn class noise.
I don't know.
You're just saying no.
It sounded like an explosion.
Really
I was trying to make a noise there. It sounded. To me, it sounded like an explosion.
It might have. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
if it even made much of a noise.
Everybody do their own at home.
Some people might be kind of familiar with this history. I mean, this has a lot to do with everything we see in the park these days. But as it was under construction, Lafayette Dam failed in some ways. We say that it kind of unexpectedly shifted or collapsed a bit. And here is a great picture of that dam failure. Here's the tower again. This is from the other side. We're seeing again that is built. I think that's done. Even the ramp to get over there and do more work seems to be gone in this picture. And now we're looking up and here's cracks in the dam.
Yeah.
So the earth really shifted there. We've got a historical eyewitness account. Should I try for my 1920s voice?
Yes, do it. And I hope you
It
brought
happened in
Laura.
September 1928. Our contractor was working at night on two ends of the dam. It was pitch dark as I walked across, and my knee hit something that wasn't supposed to be there. I tumbled down the face of the dam, which was quite steep, and for a while I was pretty groggy. When I was able, I climbed back up to a place where a concrete apron had been poured over a rock base. There was obviously something wrong. Feeling around, I found the apron was now 4 feet up in the air.
It was like an old-timey newsreel that you just read off. That was
That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
That was a quote from Leo Coleman Sr., one of East Bay MUD's engineering inspectors that was on site probably a lot of the time and was on site when the collapse happened. This quote is taken from this really cool, do I have it handy? Yeah. This really cool book that, as I understand it, was kind of put together by the Lafayette Historical Society, written by Andrew Young. It's called The Improvers of Lafayette. This is a 1981 copy and it's falling apart. Historical Society, if y'all have another copy of this, we could use it out here. But I would also encourage other people who are interested to kind of look out for that one.
We do have a question about the dam failure from Sherry, who asked if that dam failure that we were seeing, is it where the parking lot exists currently or not?
Yeah, oh, totally. The parking lot is like the top of the dam now, right? So yeah, what we were just looking at in that last picture was, I think here's the top of the dam. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that the height of the dam, what we see now out there, is pretty consistent with, I'm actually not sure about this, but I'd imagine it was more or less consistent with what we're seeing here as the top of the dam. When East Bay MUD realized, hey, we can't build this dam, and we're going to get into this in a second, we can't build this dam quite as high as we plan to.
Yeah.
That's a good question. All right, there's Leo. I don't know if that's Leo, by the way. I shouldn't have said that. I have no idea who that is.
For the
I like to think it's
purposes of this
Leo.
presentation, that is Leo Coleman.
Yeah. But that's definitely more than 4 feet. I know people were shorter back then, but that's got to be more than 4 feet high. So he was talking about the apron being 4 feet high in the air. That's some serious earth movement there.
Yeah.
Here we go, looking back, kind of that famous picture again. This is from the vantage point of basically Temple Isaiah now. But here is the dam, including the earth movement and the failure. A lot of this dirt, as I understand it, this was also part of Leo Coleman's quote later in the book, kind of moved further out into the valley, towards the camera, towards our view in this case. That's the direction it went. If y'all look closely, who's there?
Marion, she's there.
Hey, we have a better view of those billboards here. This is kind of cool.
That is.
Speed and heavy duty trucks. That's Kleber. Kleber's got your back. Western Auto Supply Company.
That's where they got all the Model Ts.
That must be it. That's it. That's where they came from. Here, look, more Model Ts or whatever they are. You can just make out the top of the tower.
Yeah.
Look at this valley oak tree. I wonder if that's the big oak tree that's on kind of the corner of our visitor center road these days.
Well,
I don't quite think it is, but it would be cool if it was. Oh, it could be. Marion, up close after the collapse. Marion looks quite sad indeed. This is another photo, having worked at the reservoir for about 12 years, that I can kind of relate to. Most of the time, it's a pleasure and a privilege. There are moments where one might feel somewhat dejected. I can relate to Marion. That's all I mean to say. Look at that face. All right. Back to Leo Coleman, Sr.
there he is.
I contacted Jim Munn, Chief Construction Engineer for East Bay MUD, about 2:30 a.m. He was at Pardee Dam near Jackson. We were just talking about Pardee Dam. Told him what happened. He told me to stay put. He would arrive at Lafayette Dam around 8 a.m., which he did. He was a prompt guy. Mr. Munn and I went over to the dam. He told me to take the following instructions. lower the height of the dam 20 feet, change the design of 3 different slopes and the berm width. The result, of course, was a much smaller body of water. This is really kind of an abbreviated story, an abbreviated history of how East Bay Mud, I think, reacted to the dam failure and figured out how to fix it.
Because it was designed to be about 140 feet high and 1,400 feet long, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk about that right now, I think.
There you go. What a segue.
We're going to go back to your segues are always the best. This is back to this design drawing of the dam. When the Lafayette Reservoir was planned, by the way, it was always planned to be a standby water supply or a standby drinking supply. Water was already getting ready to come from, or might have already been coming from, the McCollum. Joe, were you going to say, did you have some with that one?
Well, yeah, I mean, and this is just piggybacking off of what you were saying, but that it was originally part of the McCollum project because East Bay Mud didn't own the East Bay Water Company at the time and its infrastructure. And so the Lafayette Reservoir was going to be a standby for McCollum water that was going to be coming down from the Party Dam through the Lafayette Aqueduct, and storage in the Lafayette Dam was very necessary in the operation of the new aqueduct. And so, I mean, yeah, it's just to piggyback off of what Han was saying. I mean, it's pretty fascinating that in early East Bay Mud infrastructure, the Lafayette Reservoir was pretty pivotal to that
Right.
beginnings.
Right, exactly. And so it was planned to be that standby drinking supply. This is if the water coming directly from the McCollum or whatever was too turbid. That's a word we like to use when it comes to water. I think it just means too kind of dirty or murky or something like that. But if the turbidity of the water coming from McCollum didn't really allow for it to be treated and consumed as drinking water, then Lafayette Reservoir would be kind of switched on, for lack of a better word. The water, this is something I learned in preparation for this presentation, I didn't quite know it, was going to make its way to the Claremont Tunnel and kind of out into especially then, what was the heart of the service area with Oakland, Berkeley, and that area.
Incredible.
We're back to this drawing. I wanted to point out a couple of things. This was a drawing made in 1927, so before the dam collapsed. So this is kind of the tower and the reservoir in some ways. There's some references to the reservoir itself as planned. And if you look here, there is this, is my arrow pointing at the right place? I'm looking at the high water level. Okay. Yep. This was the planned high water level for the reservoir. So as you see, the lake was supposed to make it all the way up to the bottom of this cupola here, which makes a whole lot of sense because some of y'all might have noticed that there's like a door. We just can't see it as the door rather than a window on this side of the reservoir. Yep. So, I mean, presumably that was supposed to be used, I think, as an entrance into the thing. You might drive a boat up and kind of make your way into the cupola at that point. The dam collapsed. And East Bay Mud kind of realized it couldn't build the dam as high as it wanted to. We just talked about Leo Coleman's, Foreman's, or Mr. Munn's ideas about making it, just keeping it lower. And so an interesting thing here too is this, here's this, when I think this was drawn, the elevation of the water was quite low. That's this mark here. You can see this mark here is the top. That must have been the top of the dam when this was drawn. And then what I'd like to point out, I'm having a hard time seeing it now, is what we consider spill now, given the smaller dam, the smaller reservoir, we consider spill at about you see 450 anywhere there? I think it's right here.
I think so.
That's this gate, you can't use that square box there, so it's around the tower from us. That is open all of the time. And we call that spill. And in normal wet years, it's hard to say normal wet years, I know in our area, but we do fill up with water to that level, and water does go into that gate, down to the bottom of the reservoir, into the conduit, and out to Lafayette Creek. We'll talk about the Lafayette watershed and the greater watershed in a little bit here, but just keep in mind that's what the tower and the outlet are doing for us all of the time. That's the function it serves. So this is our high water level now, and as a lot of y'all know, this is what you see all the time, although right now our water is lower than usual, so you see quite a bit of tower. All right, this is hecka cool. here is, I've been referring to the filter plant across Mount Diablo Boulevard. Here it is, taken around 1952, as far as we can tell. That's because Joe knew that wasn't a Model T right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't name it 50's car though in this moment.
Right. There's the filter plant, and behind it, you see the dam as it is in so many ways as it is now. I think that's a pretty spectacular picture.
Yeah.
And here we'll get into some of these dam facts and figures. Lafayette Dam, 1,762,875 cubic yard earth-filled dam. It is 126 feet tall above its stream bed. So that's a good measurement of the height of the dam. And it has a 1,200-foot crest length. Basically, the crest refers to the top of the dam. And so for those of you who are doing your walks back and forth across the dam and you don't have your iPhone with you to count steps, you know that you've gone 1,200, 2,400, 3,600. It's a 1,200-foot crest length. Lafayette Reservoir itself, the lake, 1.74 billion gallon capacity. That is enough water to fill up 1.74 billion gallon sized jugs. Twice as many half gallons. 4 times as many quarts.
There you go.
Here, this one's for you, Joe. 8 times as many pints.
Wow.
I know we could get to a number we could relate to. The surface area of the lake, so I mean, when it's kind of like at its more normal heights, the surface area of the lake itself is 126 acres. And when it's at kind of spill, basically, we say that 78 feet maximum depth, and that's kind of down towards the bottom of the tower. I'm not sure, that seems kind of like a big number to me, but it's what we said all these years, so just roll with us.
There she is
We're
again.
getting ready to leave the history of the reservoir, and we want to thank Marion for doing the damn thing. No need to hide, no need to be shy, Marion. You really worked it out. All right. Is everyone ready to move on?
Yes, Scott's got a question asking, is the main source of the water into the reservoir pumped up from the creek?
Yeah, and we're going to get into the watershed a little bit, but no, now, and as it has been for a long time, kind of all the way going back, except for the very kind of first moments of its history, Lafayette Reservoir is filled completely with water that's collected and captured here in the park boundary. And we'll get to it in a minute, but the rim trail is kind of appropriately named. It goes along our kind of ridge line.
Yeah.
It is like the rim of a bowl, and rainfall that falls within, like towards the lake from the rim trail, goes into the reservoir. It is exclusively what fills our reservoir up with water these days. That's something that really impressed and surprised. I mean, it continues to kind of impress me that even relatively small storm events and things like that can make a noticeable difference in the level of our reservoir. But the park itself is our very local Lafayette Reservoir watershed. And that's one of the things I love about this place too, is that when you look out from the dam at our park and at the rim trail, you are seeing a complete watershed as far as the Lafayette Reservoir is concerned. Yeah, that's really cool. All right, we're moving on to the natural resource, including our watershed and our water. Everyone ready?
Oh yeah.
Here we go. Lafayette Reservoir's 928-acre watershed, that's what we were just talking about, which is basically the park boundary here. You can see the rim trail.
Yeah.
I hope, at least as I kind of trace it here around our park. It's a 928-acre watershed, and it belongs to the Walnut Creek watershed. So we were talking about water being released to Lafayette Creek. Lafayette Creek runs east through Lafayette, eventually connects with Las Trampas Creek, just kind of on the eastern end of Lafayette, goes north, connects with Walnut Creek. That's actually a creek. That's not just a city and shopping center. There's a real creek there called Walnut Creek, and it's a big one. And that goes all the way north before getting to Suisun Bay, where it empties into the bay. And then does a U-turn and makes its way eventually out of the Golden Gate. I like to think about our water making it to the Pacific Ocean eventually. Lafayette Reservoir is part of 29,000 acres of protected East Bay mud watershed in the East Bay. When you look at the aerial photo here, you see that all around us, there are homes and development. We have a lot of neighbors that we know and see all the time. And just on all sides here, we've got development. So even though we're kind of detached from the other parts of East Bay Mud's watershed, we are included as part of 29,000 acres here in the East Bay. And then there are 28,000 acres of watershed land, protected watershed in the Sierra foothills around the McCollum River. We've got some really, apart from being protected watershed for the sake of the water resource, we protect a whole lot of natural resources out here. This is protected open space, wildlife habitat, etc. We've got a few kind of quintessential and cool plant and animal communities here. We've got the oak woodland, which is in so many ways would have existed here long before the reservoir did, and long before kind of everything we've been talking about. We've got coastal scrub. A lot of people would recognize coyote brush as one of the main bushes we have out here. We've got the riparian area that would be, I can point to some of these things out. You see all these trees here, mixed oaks. This is oak woodland. This kind of stuff here, that's scrub. We've got riparian areas along all the little drainages and streams that fill up our reservoir. And we've got the aquatic habitat and aquatic environment that's in our reservoir. And we'll start breaking those down a little bit. Here's a beautiful picture. We're talking about the oak woodland here. This is a red-shouldered hawk on a valley oak tree. This is by Steve Hobbs. You'll see a lot of pictures from Steve Hobbs. I haven't seen him in a while, but he visited the park all the time. Always had a camera handy, took beautiful pictures and compiled them into this book called The Lafayette Reservoir Visual Celebration. It's my understanding that the Chamber of Commerce might still have some of these books in case anyone's interested, but these are a few. We've got books like these here, not for sale, but for people to look at in the visitor center in case they're interested. Oak woodlands are one of California's most biologically diverse habitats, and they play a critical role in sustaining healthy watersheds. We'll go here. It's named for its oak trees, of course, but it actually has a lot of trees that belong to the community. These are all trees that you see at the reservoir, which is really cool. Valley oaks, again, that's what the red-shouldered hawk is here sitting on. Coast live oak, black oak, and it's cool. Once you get to know how to identify those, you'll start picking them out everywhere. I'm not going to get into that today, but I encourage people, if they're interested, to kind of look into those ones in particular. These are the primary oaks we see here, although we also have some blue oaks. We've got California Bay Laurel, that's the bay tree with the very strong smelling leaves. California Buckeye, Pacific Madrone, Big Leaf Maple, and Black Walnut. Like we were saying, it's one of the most biologically diverse habitats in our state. There are 170 species of birds. These aren't all necessarily here, but in the oak woodland, California oak woodland in general, 170 species of birds, 100 species of mammals, 4,000 species of insects, 60 species of amphibians.
Wow. And
here's a little interactive moment, Joe. I wonder if I may ask some of our audiences. I know time is going to be whack here. I hope some of y'all will stick around with us. I respect your time, although I had no idea how long this was going to take while I put it together.
Yeah, we're
in the future, other Water Wednesdays will be much more timely. But I want to ask our audience, especially those who visited the Lafayette Reservoir, what animals they've seen out here, or which are their favorites?
Go ahead and put that in the chat, in the question and answer section, even though it's not a question, but what Han had asked, if you just put that in there and question and answer, and we'll start reading them off.
Yeah.
Favorite.
And I'll keep on talking while people enter their things.
Kristen says turkeys.
Turkeys, for sure. We got lots of turkeys out here. Turkeys are actually non-native, but we got lots of them, and I kind of love them.
Oh, otters and coyote.
Yep. We've got otters. We've got coyotes for sure, and coyotes definitely belong to the oak woodland.
Another fan of the otters
community. Yep. All right, keep on entering those, and I'll talk just briefly about what oak woodlands mean for water quality, not only around Lafayette Reservoir, but around our other local reservoirs, San Pablo, Upper San Leandro, et cetera. We have a lot of oak woodland, and even upcountry in the McCollum, we kind of have plant community that's called oak savanna. It's not quite as dense as this one is, but for water quality, oak woodlands play an important role. And here it is: trees and understory vegetation capture rainfall, they slow runoff, they reduce erosion, and increase the soil's ability to retain water. So a really beautiful, cool, rich, and important plant community that you walk through when you're going around our trail. Here's another kind of plant community that you walk through. We were talking about the riparian area. It's named for its connection to water. This picture might not be the best, it's what I could find, but we were talking about some of those drainages and how you might notice a difference in vegetation kind of along the little streams and tributaries, again, that make their way into our reservoir. Some people might recognize this, the Lakeside Nature Trail is cutting right through here. That's that turn where it's a big slope on uphill and downhill before getting into one of those drainages, which is a riparian area. Riparian areas are vegetated areas that border water bodies like streams, rivers, and lakes. They link wetlands to upland areas and have unique soil characteristics that are strongly influenced by the presence of water. We're all strongly influenced by the presence of water, don't you think? Here are some native riparian plants. Riparian zones are cool. They kind of look a mess in some ways, but a mess is a good thing when it comes to a riparian area. It tends to be layered into a few canopies, which is part of the reason, was one of the things that adds to its richness in terms of habitat. The high canopy, these are all plants that you'd find at Lafayette Reservoir that I myself have seen here. We've got big leaf maples, cottonwoods, coast live oak, and valley oak. Again, we've talked about the oaks a little bit. You can see cottonwoods here. Here's a valley oak. Here's a bunch of live oak. Again, more cottonwood, stuff like that. You can see that coyote brush I was talking about.
Got a question from Kendra.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, who says it looks like the reservoir is now being filled up with water plants. Will this affect the drinking water?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we're going to get into the Lafayette Reservoir as an aquatic habitat in just a minute. Okay. And it certainly is. We've got a lot of weeds and they're kind of tall right now. By the way, aquatic weed is actually a real word. It doesn't just, it's not just a put down. We'll get to that in a minute, and I'll finish off here talking about the riparian plants with the, oh no, I'm sorry, we're at an intermediate canopy. So that middle layer, willow, buckeye, toyon, coffeeberry, blue elderberry, some of the smaller trees and bigger bushes make up that intermediate canopy. And the understory right there on the ground has vines and smaller bushes, smaller plants. We've got gooseberry, currant, blackberry, snowberry, goldback fern, stinging nettle, and poison oak. We got lots of poison oak.
Watch out for the poison oak, folks.
People be, I've got some right now.
Oh no.
When I became a park ranger, I kind of resigned myself to having it about 50% of the year.
Another interesting one, just while you're taking a sip there, is Scott says that he remembers news stories about an alligator released into the reservoir that lived there a couple of years in 1975 or so.
Bear with me. I'm going to see if I can pull this sign off the wall.
Hopefully it's not like Happy Gilmore where there's an alligator still in Han's office.
I'm pretty good. I've got this in my office here. This is a sign that is from that moment. Beware of alligator. This was big news in Lafayette at the time. I don't know what year it was. Scott, do you have any idea? But it was big news for the reservoir.
You said around 1975 or so is what
around 75. That sounds about right. I have some pictures of that too, in news articles, news clippings. It's my understanding, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, there was never an alligator found. So I think that means one of two things. Either there never was an alligator or it's still out here.
Oh my gosh.
Ready? Just waiting.
Don't get in the water, folks, for multiple reasons.
Yeah, the kids actually, the kids ask about alligators all the time. All right, so these riparian zones and areas are also a very important animal corridor. Here are some of the favorites that we see around here that really kind of rely on riparian areas for their lives. Deer, rabbit, raccoon, fox, bobcat, mountain lion, and river otters. We're just talking about river otters. All right, I'm gonna move on here. Here we are at the aquatic ecosystem. So this is talking about really the lake itself. We also might consider the margins of the lake part of the aquatic ecosystem. This great blue heron in this picture is standing on tule reeds. We were talking about the reeds used to build huts. These are the tule reeds. And you know, some of this gets kind of towards marshland and stuff like that at some margins of the reservoir, but here we are with the aquatic ecosystem. I've got this nice little blurb there right here. Uh-oh. Rainwater picks up nutrient-rich sediments as it flows to the reservoir. Along with energy from sunlight, these nutrients support aquatic plants and algae that form the basis of a complex food web. I was challenged by this word complex food web only because I was going to try to do something on this PowerPoint presentation, and my skills are nowhere near where they need to be to make a complex food web. So this in so many ways looks like a very simple, what do you call it? Food freaking, what
Diagram?
is it? Yeah. So
Neither of us are qualified for
these
that.
are interconnected in a way that isn't really illustrated well in this thing. But if you look kind of at the basis of the food web is the algae and the aquatic plants, you get towards some of the smaller organisms and animals like the protozoa, which is almost like, I think, nearly single cell, not double. Like I said, I'm not a biologist. And we've got plankton, we've got insects and fry larvae that feed off the algae and the aquatic plants. And then it kind of moves up from there, actually. Again, it's not just a food chain, it's a food web. So these things are, but we've got some of the bigger animals that we recognize a little more readily: snails, crayfish, frogs, fish, turtles, birds, and sure enough, river otters. Lafayette Reservoir, one of the cool activities out here, something we see a lot of people do, is coming out and birding. And one of the things that I find really cool about the reservoir itself is that it supports a whole lot of kind of like migratory birds and some year-round residents too. We have all kinds of birds in our fields and in our forests and things like that. But the lake itself is a very important kind of oasis and stopover for a lot of migratory birds, and it supports its own number of year-round bird species,
including the bald eagle.
The bald eagle.
Yeah,
the bald eagle comes
sighting just
mostly in the wintertime, although we saw it a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't normally come in the summer. There isn't a nesting pair of bald eagles here. There are elsewhere on East Bay Mud watershed, but we usually see them when the fish are being planted, and that's what I've got this note down here about. East Bay Mud and CD, F, and W plant rainbow trout in the winter and catfish in the summer. The bald eagle doesn't go for the catfish. It's my understanding that those are hard to swallow for a bird. But when it's trout season, I mean, we know that the trout truck is coming long before we see or hear it, because the birds are going crazy. They somehow know, they can sense it. And you see cormorants going crazy for them. You see the big American white pelicans that we have for a number of months in the wintertime kind of starting to circle around. And the bald eagle, sure enough, will every once in a while come through, and they're known for stealing fish from the birds that actually go out and catch them.
They're bullies.
Oh, yeah. How about that? Did we cover the aquatic ecosystem?
I think so.
All right, cool. We still got a few minutes before 6, and I plan on going a few minutes longer if anyone wants to stay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get into, so, you know, we've talked about the history of Lafayette Reservoir. We've talked about it as a natural resource and a water resource. And of course, we are also a park here at the reservoir, and we're a treasured community resource. I'll tell you a little bit about the history of recreation with East Bay Mud. Again, keep in mind, I work for the East Bay Regional Parks District. That's a parks organization with a parks mission before I came here. And I worked for the National Park Service before that. That's a parks organization with a parks mission. East Bay Mud is a water company with a water mission. When we built the reservoir, the Lafayette Reservoir, and planned it as a standby drinking supply, we didn't build it with the purpose of being open to the public as a rec area. So it was finished in 1930, do we say 1933 or 1934 for the completion of the dam and reservoir?
I think it was 33.
33. For years, in fact, for decades, we were not open to the public. That goes along with other reservoirs in our other protected watershed land. It was off limits to the public. That was for the sake of water quality and to support our mission as, you know, suppliers of healthy, clean drinking water. We aren't a parks organization. Residents, neighbors, people of the community kind of petitioned over the years, saw the watershed, saw the land, saw the lakes, and thought, hey, why can't we come out there and enjoy the land, you know, drop a line for fish, do different things. I hear plenty of, to this day, I hear stories from plenty of people who came here, visited before. They like to talk about, oh yeah, I fished there before it was open to the public. Anyways, those are always good. After kind of years, decades of people petitioning, finally in 1959, state legislation passed that more or less required East Bay Mud to open its watershed land and its reservoirs to develop a couple of rec areas for mixed use recreation. We, again, prioritize water quality. That's what we're here for, and that's one of our working, you know, is one of our working priorities. We prioritize habitat and wildlife protection. That's one of our working priorities. But in 1966, we opened as a recreation area. And so a lot of our work goes into supporting recreation, inviting people, welcoming people on to the reservoir and to the park. And we do a lot of work in support of that. And honestly, that's as great. One of my favorite things about this park too, about working in this park is the rec side of things. So let's get into it a little bit. I'm gonna take a moment here to describe. Of course, we're talking about Lafayette Reservoir, but as I've been saying, East Bay Mud has a lot of watershed land elsewhere, and I'm just gonna go through a very brief kind of like show of some of the recreational offerings elsewhere in East Bay Mud. Here we are, the Sierra Foothills. I was talking about 28,000 acres of protected watershed land up there. There are 41 miles of hiking trails and equestrian trails through there. This is a beautiful picture, I thought, of one of our visitors or hikers there along the McCollum River.
Yeah.
Here's the McCollum River day use area. This is below our dams and reservoirs, but it's on East Bay Mud property, at least as far as it gets to the river. It's recently opened, as I understand it, and it's one of those places where you can jump in to the water and really enjoy it. The reservoirs that we protect as drinking water, many of which are used kind of regularly. Lafayette Reservoir, at this point, we protect it as an emergency drinking supply. We don't allow swimming in them to keep them clean. In this case, I'll show you a couple of places where you can swim in some good East Bay Mud water. We'll call it that. So here's the McCollum River day use area. I'm not sure that this is Pardee Reservoir. I just rolled with that because I wanted to find a picture to go with this bullet point here, but it could be Comanche. Anyone holler at me if they know. But there's a beautiful picture of some hiking there. Here's Comanche Reservoir. This is a big rec area. It has multiple kind of like shores and things like that, like North Shore, South Shore, or whatever, where people can camp, get in the water, barbecue, do all kinds of things. There's a great picture from there. These are a couple, there'll be a few pictures of Comanche Reservoir. Here's somebody on horseback. One of our visitors on horseback near the Turkey Hill Equestrian Campground, which is also in Comanche, kind of on the shore of Comanche there.
Wow.
There's this bullet point here about the Comanche Hills Hunting Preserve. I don't have a picture of that, but there's that also. One thing I should say for sure when we're talking about other East Bay Mud rec areas is that a lot of them have we have contracts with concessionaires that do a lot of the rec side of operating things. And the reason I'll mention that, I'll get to it more in a second, is because like you said at the very beginning, Joe, one of the things we're proud about at Lafayette Reservoir is that we're 100% East Bay Mud operated here. So anyone you come across any one of the workers that you come across while you're visiting the reservoir are East Bay Mud employees. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. There they are, fishing at the trout pond. All right. Apart from the Lafayette Reservoir, we've got some beautiful land elsewhere that people are welcome to visit. 90 miles of hiking and equestrian trails. This is the Rocky Ridge Loop in the springtime with all of those California poppies. This is just a beautiful picture. You do not need, as many people know, a trail permit to hike at Lafayette Reservoir. That's kind of an exception to most of our trails in the East Bay and upcountry. You need to have, and it's not a hard application to fill out, and the fee is pretty much nominal in some ways, but there's a small fee, $10 a year or $30 for 5 years to get a trail permit and to have access to these 90 miles of trails outside of Lafayette Reservoir here in the East Bay. Here's another beautiful picture from one of our trails, the Skyline Trail.
Wow.
San Pablo Reservoir Recreation, that's not that far down the street. from us, and it's a big reservoir and a reservoir that's used regularly and all the time to help with East Bay Mud's water supply. And that's cool. I'm not an expert. I'll stop there. These folks are playing volleyball, and I can talk about that all day. Here's some grilling. I wonder if corn must be good right now. This picture always kind of makes me hungry. That's some good barbecuing at San Pablo. They are one of our parks recreation areas that employs a concession or contracts with a concession. Their concession, you know, they're able to offer a lot of cool things, including all these motorboats, things we don't have here at Lafayette Reservoir. And stuff. They have a kind of a bigger marina and dock attendants to help people out onto their boats and things like that. So that's a really cool activity over there. Uh-oh, what happens now? I guess we're moving on. Yeah, I don't know. I missed something here. So now we've talked about some of the other offerings, but again, we're here to talk about Lafayette Reservoir. So here is the map and design proposal that Joe was alluding to earlier or referring to earlier in the presentation. And that was referred to in the invitation that y'all had about a golf course. This above the tower schematic here is the other thing that I have hanging in this office. It was drawn in 1964. Keep in mind that we opened as a rec area in 1966. So this was one of the proposals that East Bay Mud received when it was moving forward to develop Lafayette Reservoir into a rec area. It is fun to look at. Sometimes I think that this architecture firm, whoever it was, gave their kids some crayons and said, do what you will. And I don't think it turned out that bad, but as Joe was saying, it's not consistent with what East Bay Mud wants to do for resource protection, water quality assurance, and also for recreation, which we need to keep at non-consumptive, kind of passive recreation.
So hold on to your golf clubs.
There they are. I know I almost wore my whole Callaway outfit for today over this moment. In the back, in what we call the canyon area, so the south end of the lake, that's opposite the dam, right? There was an idea for 9 holes of link style golf. I'm trying to talk golf here and don't know how. And a clubhouse way up on the hill there. So I can only imagine. I honestly don't know how any of this would actually fit. I mean, even the footprint of it, this would be steep. These would be amazing looking golf holes here. There's that. There's a road that goes all the way around the reservoir rather than a walking trail. There are scenic vistas and pullouts where one might park and check things out and hang out. Getting back kind of towards the front of the park here, here's where the visitor center is now. They had all kinds of ideas for buildings. Here is the dam. It gets interesting again, kind of going down the dam. They saw that slope, the earth inside of the dam. They saw that slope as an opportunity to do a big stadium style seating situation that led down eventually to this huge stage at the bottom of the dam where Taylor Swift would have been last weekend. There's an Olympic-sized swimming pool and swimming complex here. I almost am a little reluctant to show this design proposal because I imagine that some people might think it's cool and might think what could have been or what might we do. Again, I agree, it's super cool. It's just not what is consistent with what we need to do here as a reservoir and as a park. So that's it. That was what that whole golf thing was about.
Yeah, no need to worry. It's not happening.
It's not.
Although it is a shame that Taylor Swift didn't play there last week. I
was still hoping that she'd come.
Yeah. Stage.
Let's go to our reservoir community. Again, for me, the recreation side of things is one of the things that I love most about this park. I worked, like I said, in a number of different parks with the regional parks. I worked in Yosemite before, was out in the wilderness. There's a lot of beautiful things about working in a wilderness type park, but I felt really lucky for those experiences coming to East Bay Mud, getting hired to Lafayette Reservoir, which is a heavily used recreation area. We welcome more than 1 million people a year. That's a huge number of people for this park. We asked if people come every day. So some of those people will be counted 365 times out of 1 million. Some of them even more than that. But it's a lot of people visiting this park every day to recreate. And what I was saying was I was happy to know that I loved a park like this because I worked at parks like it before with the regional parks. And I find the interaction, the spirit, the community of these parks really the most compelling thing about my work. That's kind of my personal feeling.
Yeah.
So again, hi to all the friends that might be out there listening. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all soon. If I get done in time, by the way, people can come out here tonight. I mean, we close at 8:30 and it's sunset and it's beautiful.
You're getting close to in time there. We're about 8 over, but you keep.
Oh, that's
keep going.
great. We'll breeze through this. These are cool historical pictures early on with recreation. There's somebody fishing on a dock. Here's a good soccer game, probably on the east lawn. More fishing. Look at all these. I think these are called sunfish sailboats. We had a lot of them back in the day, and it's my understanding that it was like a sailing club. Every once in a while, somebody will still bring a sailboat and figure out a way to launch it off of our boat dock here, which is kind of limited, and they'll get it out there, and it's just a beautiful sight to me, a sailboat out on the water. I took a time machine back for this photo. That's clearly me.
Yes.
This is a great photo. I don't know who the clown was. It captures probably, yeah, my spirit in so many ways. There's the front of Lafayette Reservoir. Here are those sailboats on the water. Here's some folks that are ready to bike and paddle and everything right there out on the dam. This was before the dam was paved.
Yeah,
I like this picture too because Joe still has these shorts.
I do.
That's a great old picture. We're getting a little bit, so yeah, it's kind of limited in the number of pictures I had or that my computer could handle. Here are some pictures that we have in a binder of the reservoir and of recreation. More recently, although I would guess that this is in the 80s, if not the, 1990 or something like that. There's an old Ranger truck. That's hecka cool with a fire pump on the back. We are trained wildland firefighters and working for fire protection and fire safety is a huge part of what we do. Look at the reservoir parking lot is full of cars. That's what it looks like nearly every day, almost all times of day, especially in the morning or the evening, but we are packed with people a lot of times. There's a cool picture. This is in the West Pines. That's where the playground used to be. Here's a family enjoying themselves. Pine trees, y'all might have noticed, those of you who visit here, or y'all might have heard if you live anywhere in our region, pine trees are kind of dying and going away. The pine trees that we have here at the reservoir were planted by the CCCs, the original Civilian Conservation Corps, as part of the New Deal programs back in like the 30s and 40s. The idea was that they could offer some, I think, bank stabilization, things like that. Pine trees only are expected, they have a life expectancy of about 80 years. So we're at that point with many of ours here at the reservoir. And not to mention successive dry years and drought have made them very susceptible at the same time to a bark beetle, which bores its way in to the bark of pine trees, lays its eggs or larvae or whatever. The larvae eats basically the vascular system of the tree and girdles it or kills it. Sometimes that can seem like something that happens overnight. You've got a tree that's green, almost literally the next day it can be all browned out. People who visit here have seen that happening. We're removing trees kind of as well as we can to keep up. But that's what's going on. So I was saying this is in the West Pines. We joke now that it's called the Was Pines. We do regret seeing big, beautiful trees kind of go away. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. In fact, there's nothing we can do about it. One of the things I'd like to mention is that, again, those pine trees were planted, and pine trees aren't even native to this area in the way that they've been kind of grown and established here. So as they're being removed, one of the things I think is really cool is seeing kind of the hillsides and stuff in a way that is more natural for this area. I think there's a lot of beauty in that, and we're looking forward to continuing to see that develop over the years. Here's the East Pines. Again, there are not this many pines there now, but people hanging out. Another pair of Joe's shorts, and I'm thinking this is probably the same day a ranger had a camera, again either in the 80s or 90s. Oh, and now we're moving to more contemporary photos. These are, again, Steve Hobbs, and they're included in his book, The Celebration of the Lafayette Reservoir, or excuse me, the Lafayette Reservoir Visual Celebration. I love this picture very much. We do have a number of local or resident painters that come by. I think this is a great shot of somebody painting the reservoir and the scene.
Yeah.
One thing I'll mention is that we are now displaying and exhibiting some local artists' work when it's reservoir specific here in the visitor center. Another good reason to come and drop by. You can check out paintings or kind of rotating them through a couple months at a time. And so come check them out. They're really, really cool and beautiful. Oh, we were going to do another poll, weren't we, Joe? Put that out there and I'll keep on talking.
Okay. All right. So we're going to put a poll up of what your favorite recreation activities are. So I'm going to launch this poll right now. And while Han continues the presentation, we'll have it going.
Here's
What
another
do you
photo.
do
These
at
are
the
some
reservoir?
walkers. Look at that, Cal Poly. There we go.
Nice, nice.
Mustang.
You found one.
The reason, I think the primary reason we're as busy as we are, I mean, a lot of people like to come here and do a lot of things. We want to be open and accessible. We are open and accessible to everyone. And, you know, but the reason where I think that we're as busy as we are in so many ways is because the Lakeside Nature Trail goes around the lake, is just under 3 miles and is paved the whole way and is ideal in so many ways for a loop. Some people make 2, ideal for walking by oneself, walking with a friend, walking a dog, walking with a stroller. And I think in so many ways, the majority of the use we see here are people coming in just to take their walk. They might stay here for an hour, no more, and then kind of we'll see them the next time. So there's some walkers. We've got all kinds of different special events, reservations, different things that go on. This is a picture from a race that we had, or not necessarily a race, but like a fun run that we had here. It's cool. There's all kinds of different, again, like events and things that go on here that we kind of support. And you should reach out and inquire if there's anything you're interested in doing. Here's a cool picture, a little musical situation happening out on one of our docks.
Yeah, it's I just wanted to go the poll information, give you a second to breathe there. The number one answer, hike, 64% hike at the reservoir, which is, yeah, same with me. Walk my dog was number 2 at 23%, and then tide, bird watching, pedal boat, fish at 3%, sorry, and barbecue and picnic was 5%. So
right on. That's awesome. Oh, that's just awesome,
folks.
Very cool. Here we go. Here are a couple of people running the rim trail. That's a bold move. I've never done that. I've never tried that one before. The rim trail is 4.7 miles around. Like I was saying, it's kind of on our ridge line. It's the rim of the bowl. And there are a lot of people that hike that, and more power to them. I drive it. I have that privilege. Just the folks that work here. There's some fishing, some more fishing. There's some folks running with balloons on the Lakeside Nature Trail. That's something I would consider doing. Here's a great picture, someone looking out from the dam to our reservoir. So in so many ways, the spirit of this place is shaped by and enhanced by all of the people that visit it every day. I just want to say we appreciate y'all for it. And again, for me, the connections made here are a huge part of what I love about Lafayette Reservoir.
Awesome.
All right, this is it. This is the last stretch here. We can't celebrate, in my opinion, we cannot celebrate and talk about the Lafayette Reservoir without talking about the team of East Bay MUD employees that take care of it. Like I was saying, we are unique and we are proud of the fact that we are entirely East Bay MUD and East Bay operated. What that means, though, is that there's a really relatively small group of dedicated East Bay MUD park rangers, recreation area attendants, some of whom you all might recognize when I show you some pictures in a minute here, that take care of this park every day. It takes a person to open the gate in the morning. It takes a person to close the gate in the evening, and everything that happens in between, pretty much everything is done by this group of 10 rangers and rec attendants. I'm the 11th person. I no longer do much. I sit here and talk on a PowerPoint. I'll show you just some pictures of folks. You might recognize some of but you know, the rangers and rec attendants here, they're a talented and dedicated group of people. Again, we do just about everything. And that's something that's both really cool, one of the really cool things about our jobs, and it's a really hard part of our jobs too, for lack of a better word. Here we are planting a tree, Gerald's putting in a split rail fence post there. Quindy, one of our recreation area attendants, won the Golden Litter Stick Award that year. Mike and Ian are pumping the sewage lift station. There's Michael Kuth, one of our recreation area attendants, holding a hawk. That's just every day at the res, you know, just holding birds. Here's Quindy again. I took this picture recently. I just love it because she just struck this pose all of a sudden. And when I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm playing football." And I said, "Well, what are you doing with your mouth?" She says, "I'm concentrating." Say hi to Quindy if you see her. She's one of our newer members, and she's enthusiastic as heck about this park and its people. We do a lot of, I was saying, we do a lot of fuel management, vegetation management, and fire safety work. That's something we are conscious of and working on just about year round. And for those of you who've seen us out there on mowers, tractors, you've seen a disc go by. That's a tractor with a big kind of like tiller looking thing on the back. If anyone here is a neighbor, we might have talked when you said, "Hey, we're worried about fire. When are y'all going to come back and mow our fence line?" We do it every year. We do it according to and it is inspected by Con Fire. We belong to the Contra Costa Fire District here at Lafayette Reservoir, and so that's something that is very much one of our working priorities. We recognize that fire danger is kind of going up, and you know, we're all kind of concerned about the fire climate right now. We work in that dynamic of fire environment to keep this place safe. There we are building some, we're doing some concrete work. This was a little kind of amphitheater style wall that Ben and Don were working on in front of the stage. There's that mower I was talking about that you might see come by you on the trail or pass by you if you're a neighbor. Here are some of the rangers and chainsaw training. We do a lot of tree work. We remove some of those pine trees ourselves, not to mention prune and buck up trees that fall, or prune trees that branches that are in the way of our trails and fire roads. Here we go. Quindy and Linnea put together this net. Well, they attach this net to a long pole and they call it ultra net. So that's an ultra net picture. Here we go, dropping a tree. We've recently installed, maybe some of y'all have noticed, some new interpretive materials kind of in the center of the dam. Those are all East Bay Mud developed. We designed this whole thing and built it all. We're looking forward to developing and installing more interpretive materials, panels like these ones around the reservoir. So when you're taking your walk around the reservoir, you can look forward to that. And they will describe some of the things you're seeing. There's just another great picture of Quindy and Linnea. I think that's it. We just want to say, see you at the reservoir. And again, it's 7:20 right now.
Not bad.
It's probably like an 8:30 kind of look. If you got time, come out and see us right now.
Yes, come out to the reservoir. You still have time. Like Han said, Grace wanted to say that it's been a real informative and entertaining Water Wednesday. She
Awesome.
Appreciates learning much more about our water systems. She wanted to say that Han has a real love for his work and for the community, and thinks this is her fourth or fifth, and she'll be back for another Water Wednesday. And she sees that you have the golf course plan right behind your head.
Yeah, it is there. Well, thank you, Grace.
We're getting thank yous from Patsy and Sherry, and Mitch is asking how he can apply because it looks like everyone is enjoying their work at the reservoir.
Right.
Yeah, and so lots of positive feedback, and so we want to thank you all for coming to this Water Wednesday, and especially thank you, Han, for taking the time and going over the reservoir. Really is a cherished property for East Bay Mud.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. It's really been nice kind of hanging out with everyone, even though I can't see you on my computer. It's great spending some time.
We're feeling the love.
Don't forget to mention next month's Water Wednesday on September 20th, recycled water.
There you go. Next month's Water Wednesday is on September 20th, and it'll be on a topic of recycled water. And we look forward to having you all back then. In the meantime, get out to the reservoir. You still got about an hour, maybe. Han will greet you out there, and he's signing autographs right now. So get out there right now.
I'm about to run the rim trail. I might go for it tonight.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you again, and have a good night. Okay. Thanks, Han.
Thank you.